Alina didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't throw anything or make a scene. She just stared. In that moment, everything made sense. The distance, the vague excuses, the late nights, the emotional coldness. Rayyan had been cheating on her, and not just once. And yet, it wasn't the betrayal that hurt the most. It was the ease with which he had lied, the casualness of it all, the familiarity of this other woman in his space. Alina walked out that night without saying a word. She didn't look back. She didn't call. She didn't explain. Because how do you explain the death of a dream? In the days that followed, she vanished from the places they used to go. She changed her number. She blocked him on everything. She packed up the photos, the souvenirs, the matching coffee mugs. But the hardest thing she had to pack was herself. Because how do you rebuild when the very foundation of your love turns out to be a lie? That's the version of Alina the world didn't see. They didn't see the sleepless nights, the whispers to the ceiling, the numbness that followed. They didn't see the way betrayal can haunt you in your own home through memories that refuse to stay buried. But even in the deepest heartbreak, there lives a flicker, a spark that says, "This is not the end." And for Alina, that spark was about to turn into a flame. In the days that followed her quiet exit, Alina didn't speak of what happened. Not to friends. Not to her family. Not even to herself. She let the silence do the talking. Because silence didn't lie. Silence didn't make excuses. Silence didn't betray her. But inside her, a war had started. One between the version of herself who still wanted to believe love could be real, and the version who now doubted everything. Alina began to replay every moment in her mind like a broken record. That smile he gave when he said he loved her. The way he'd hold her after arguments and swear she was his only peace. Every memory, now twisted, poisoned by the truth. But the pain wasn't done growing. 3 weeks later, it surfaced again, but this time, through someone else. A mutual friend. One who didn't know Alina was still in the dark. She had assumed Alina and Rayyan were still together. "Oh my God, I saw Rayyan and that girl from the club again. Are they official now? I always thought he was too flirtatious to settle down, but I guess she changed him." That girl from the club. The words hit like glass in the throat. Alina smiled politely, nodded, excused herself. But her hands were shaking. He didn't just betray her. He replaced her. As if she were disposable. As if 2 years meant nothing. As if her love was a phase he could move on from. Just like that. The heartbreak turned into rage. How could someone lie so easily, love so falsely, move on so quickly? Did she ever mean anything to him? These questions became constant echoes in her mind, each one louder than the last. And when the anger couldn't contain itself anymore, it leaked into her days. Her tone became colder. Her eyes duller. Her laughter gone. But something else was beginning to take form in the shadows of her pain. A transformation. You see, betrayal has a strange way of revealing your hidden strength. And though she didn't know it yet, Alina was about to become someone entirely new. She began journaling everything, every memory, every lie, every feeling. Not because she wanted revenge, but because she wanted truth. Her truth. The version of the story that had been buried beneath his deception. She started therapy. Quietly. Secretly. She didn't want pity or validation, just peace. And slowly, piece by piece, she began stitching herself back together. Until something happened she didn't expect. Rayyan came back. 3 months after the betrayal. Just like that. A message at midnight. "I miss you. I made a mistake. Can we talk?" The audacity. The gall. For a moment, her hand trembled above the phone. Not from love. Not from longing. But from the sheer nerve of him reaching out, like nothing happened. Like her heart hadn't been shattered. Like she owed him a conversation. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. So she agreed to meet. Not because she wanted him back, but because she wanted to look the lie in the face and not flinch. They met at the same cafe where their story had begun. He looked the same smile, same voice, same charm. But to Alina, He was unrecognizable now, like a house you once called home that now feels haunted. I didn't mean to hurt you, he began. And just like that, gaslighting. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She listened, as he apologized without specifics, as he blamed his past, as he mentioned how confused he was, how he didn't know what he wanted, how he still thought about her every day. He reached for her hand, but Alina didn't move. Instead, she asked a question that sliced through his rehearsed remorse. How many women were there? Silence. And then a whisper. More than I can admit. And in that moment, something shifted. The girl who once would have begged for answers, who once would have tolerated breadcrumbs and excuses, now saw him for what he truly was, a boy playing pretend in the armor of a man. She stood up. Thank you, she said, for proving that letting you go was the best thing I ever did. And she walked away. But the story didn't end there. Rayyan wasn't done with her. Because when you walk away from someone who thrives on control, your power becomes their obsession. He began watching her stories, commenting on her posts, sending flowers with no name, telling mutual friends how broken he was, how much he missed her, how different he would be if given another chance. But Alina didn't flinch, because for the first time, she had learned something sacred. Closure isn't something you get from them. It's something you give yourself. And just when she was starting to bloom again, focusing on her career, rebuilding friendships, rediscovering joy, another twist surfaced. A friend messaged her, urgently. Alina, I think you need to see this. Attached was a screenshot of Rayyan messaging another woman, a woman Alina didn't know. But this time he wasn't just flirting. He was warning her. About Alina. She's crazy. Obsessed with me. I had to block her. She's unstable. Alina stared at the message, her heart pounding, not from hurt, but from disbelief. He wasn't just lying anymore. He was smearing her name. To protect his own reputation, to keep his new victims in the dark, he was rewriting the narrative, casting himself as the wounded hero, and her as the villain. And just like that, the betrayal deepened. Because betrayal doesn't always end with a breakup. Sometimes it continues in whispers, in rumors, in stories told behind your back that paint you as the monster in someone else's fairy tale. But Alina wasn't going to be quiet anymore.
She didn't respond.
Not at first. Instead, she documented everything. Every message, every lie, every person he manipulated. She started speaking out, not in rage, but in truth. Not to destroy him, but to set herself free. Because sometimes, healing looks like standing in the same fire that once burned you, and realizing it no longer scares you. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming her name, her story, her power. And in doing so, she sparked something unexpected. Other women began reaching out. Some knew Rayyan. Others had similar stories, with different names, different faces, but the same wounds. And suddenly, Alina was no longer alone in her pain. She had become a voice, a lighthouse, a quiet revolution. Because healing doesn't always happen in solitude. Sometimes it happens in sisterhood, in honesty, in the brave decision to speak, even when your voice trembles. There comes a moment in every story of heartbreak when the one who is betrayed finally steps into their divine awakening, not because the pain vanished, but because it transformed them. For Alina, that moment didn't arrive with fireworks. It came in stillness, a morning like any other. She was sipping tea by the window, the early light brushing against her skin. Her phone buzzed again, another anonymous message. I heard what he said about you. Just wanted to let you know I don't believe a word of it. That was the third stranger this week. Women she didn't know, some from other cities, others from her own past, were now finding her. Not because she asked them to, but because truth has a way of making its own path. Rayyan's web of lies was unraveling. The same charm he had used to seduce and manipulate was now crumbling under the weight of accountability. Because light, dear soul, always finds its way in, even through the darkest cracks. Alina realized something profound. She didn't need to chase justice. She had become justice. Not through revenge, but through growth, through grace. And that's when the divine shifted things again. An invitation arrived. A conference. Women in leadership. Healing after heartbreak. A panelist had dropped out, and Alina's name was passed along by someone who had seen her write about her journey online. She almost declined, but something whispered, "This is your moment." She walked on that stage in a simple white blouse, no longer hiding behind filters or smiles that weren't hers. She stood there, in front of strangers, and told the truth, unfiltered, raw, radiant. She spoke about betrayal, not as a victim, but as a vessel of light who rose from the ash. And the room was silent. Some wept. Some nodded. Some clutched their hearts as if she was reading their own memories aloud. Because she was. Every heartbreak she shared was a mirror for someone else's healing. By the time she stepped down, women were lined up to hug her. Not because she was famous, but because she was familiar. Because she proved that a broken heart is not the end. It is the beginning. But life still had one more test. One more loop to close. Weeks later, she bumped into Ray Yan again. This time, by accident. A coffee shop neither of them used to frequent. No plans. No drama. Just fate, nudging them into the same room one last time. He saw her before she saw him. His eyes widened. He froze. She didn't. She didn't flinch. Didn't pause. Didn't shrink. She walked past him with the kind of calm that can't be faked, the kind that comes from true healing. But he stood up, blocking her path. "Alina, please. I just want 5 minutes." She looked at him. This man who once made her doubt herself. This man whose lies echoed in her bones for months. Now he looked small. Not because he had shrunk, but because she had outgrown him. Still, she nodded. Because sometimes closure wears the face of confrontation. They stepped outside. Rayanne fidgeted. Apologized again. Talked about therapy. About how he'd changed. About how no one ever understood him like she did. He looked at her the way someone looks at a train they missed. But Alina wasn't a train. She was the tracks. "You didn't lose me because I was hard to love," she said. "You lost me because you kept choosing what hurt me." He looked stunned, as if no one had ever said that to him before. But she wasn't done. "You didn't just cheat on me. You tried to rewrite who I was, so you could keep playing the hero in your own story." Silence. He swallowed hard. "I was scared," he whispered. She nodded. "And I was sacred. That's the difference." He didn't have a reply. Because truth doesn't need permission to pierce. She walked away. This time, not in anger. Not in pain, but in peace. From that day on, her story took on a new shape. The blog she once kept private became public. Her writing was raw, poetic, honest. She didn't name names. She didn't seek clout. She just spoke. And the world listened. Soon, she was speaking on panels, invited to podcasts, asked to write chapters in books about emotional abuse, about emotional rebirth, about healing. What Rayanne meant to break, God used to build. What once buried her now became the soil for her own garden. And, oh, how she bloomed. But this story isn't about Alina alone. It's about you too. Yes, you. The one reading this. Because somewhere in your story, there's a version of betrayal, too. Maybe someone lied to you. Maybe someone loved you until it wasn't convenient. Maybe someone tried to silence your voice, confuse your truth, make you question your worth. But I want you to hear me clearly now. You are not what they did to you. You are not their confusion, their cowardice, their cruelty. You are not the mess they left behind. You are the miracle rising from it. You may not have received the apology. You may not get the closure. But closure doesn't come from their mouth. It comes from a decision to no longer let their actions define your narrative. It comes when you say, "I forgive myself for staying, and I free myself by walking away." It comes when you stop waiting for justice and start becoming it. It comes when you tell your story, not with bitterness, but with power. Because your pain is not your prison. It is your platform. So if you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever wept on your bathroom floor, asking, why wasn't I enough? If you've ever swallowed tears in public, trying to hold it together, I want you to know. The angels saw. God listened. And heaven is not silent. The very people who tried to destroy your spirit will witness your divine restoration. Not because you'll win louder than them, but because you'll heal louder than they ever expected. Let them talk. Let them twist the tale. Truth doesn't need to scream to be heard.
It just needs time.
And time, beloved, is on your side. Because when God rewrites your story, even your scars become scripture. Beloved soul, let me speak to the very part of you that has been waiting for this moment, not just to hear the truth, but to feel it. You didn't land on this message by accident. You were led here by every unanswered prayer, by every silent night of weeping, by every moment you whispered, God, I can't take this anymore. And the angels? They heard you. They hovered close, closer than your breath, watching as you stood in fire and did not burn. They saw your hands shaking as you typed messages you never sent. They saw you delete your own words just to keep the peace. They saw you love someone who didn't know how to love you back. But heaven is not silent. And now, the angels say, we've gathered the tears you cried in secret. We've counted the moments you chose love even when it hurt. We've watched as they twisted your name, yet you chose stillness instead of war. And now it's time. Time for restoration. Time for reversal. Time for a divine interruption that no human hand can block. Because the same God who watched you grieve will now make sure you gleam. You've been asking, why did they lie about me? But, child, the greater question is, why did you survive it? And here's the truth. You didn't survive, so you could stay small. You didn't endure that betrayal, so you could hide in silence. You didn't cry those tears just to be forgotten. You made it through, so you could testify. So you could become the living proof that God doesn't just restore what was lost.
He multiplies it.
So hear this, with all the weight of heaven behind it. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are not too broken to be used. You are chosen, set apart, and appointed for a time such as this. Let them mock. Let them gossip. Let them play innocent while your name sits on their tongue. Their words will fall to the ground like dust. Because what God is about to do in your life will speak louder than any lie spoken against you. And as for you, you will walk into rooms they said you'd never enter. You will be favored in places where your name was once slandered. And when you smile, oh, child, when you smile again, even the heavens will sing. So wipe your tears, straighten your crown, and don't you dare forget who you are. You are heaven's response to betrayal. You are the divine's answer to injustice. You are the prophecy they underestimated. And now you rise.